So welcome back to Oedipus Part 2. We left off where the tense situation of the pollution in the land, the unsolved murder of the former king Laius has been announced. Oedipus has volunteered to be the chief detective to find and bring to justice the murderer of Laius, who is yet unknown. The crime has not been solved. At the urging of Creon, his brother-in-law, Oedipus calls in Tiresias, the blind prophet, who has the gift of foresight given to him by Zeus. Tiresias is supposed to be helpful in the effort to find the killer, to cleanse the land, and to bring Thebes back to health. But what happens is the moment Tiresias steps on stage, things start to get a little bit dicey. Tiresias is mum. He won't say. Oedipus asks him, please tell us, what do you know? You're here to help us find this murderer. Tiresias says to him, how terrible to see the truth when the truth is only pain to him who sees. How terrible to see the truth when the truth is only pain to him who sees. What does he mean? Well, it's the verb to see, which is a very big one. Tiresias is blind. He goes about in the dark. Darkness and light, blindness and sight. These are themes or motifs, tricks of language that are threaded throughout the narrative of this play. Tiresias sees in the dark because that's the only element that he has. He does not have the exterior world anymore. He sees inwardly. He sees what's unconscious. Oedipus apparently does not. And for Oedipus to see in the dark, as Tiresias does, to see his own darkness, to see what he does not know about himself, will give him pain. This is Tiresias's sort of poetical, mysterious language. And Oedipus says, why this? Why so grim, so dire? Tiresias says, just send me home. You bear your burdens, I'll bear mine. It's better that way. Please believe me. Now, Oedipus is about to become very angry. Is he not being prodded into this anger by Tiresias? Is Tiresias not in a way being coy here, playing Oedipus a little bit? I mean, I don't want to go too far in my interpretation. The next thing he says to Oedipus is, I fail to see. This text is obsessed with vision and seeing. I fail to see that your own words are so well timed. I'd rather not have the same thing said of me. Then later he says, I will never reveal my dreadful secrets, not to say your own. Is this not just chipping away at Oedipus's ego, chipping away at what he thinks he knows, chipping away at his conscious level? And what happens when that happens to a person? The first thing is the anger, the irritability. You become irritable because you feel like your self-confidence, your self-assurance, who you are, the way you orient yourself in your life is being pulled from you. And something bad is underneath. That's the fear that comes, right? So the irritability turns into anger. The anger is touched with fear. And Oedipus becomes downright paranoid. He thinks that Tiresias is out to get him. He thinks that since Creon sent him, that Creon is out to get him. And the whole thing becomes very crispy. The words, your rage, your wrath, your anger, your fury, all these words that Tiresias uses to describe Oedipus's reaction. Again, it's almost like pushing his buttons. Oh, why are you so angry? Oh, your rage. Oh, be as mad at me as you want. It's not my problem. What is it that you're talking about? Oedipus wants to know. I think you could read that Tiresias is sort of playing in here. If you were sympathetic to Oedipus, perhaps not being guilty of this crime, or if you are sympathetic to what Oedipus says about the situation, that because Oedipus bested Tiresias back in the day, because Oedipus, not Tiresias, solved the riddle of the Sphinx. Isn't that the job of a prophet, the protector of the land, the seer in the dark? Isn't that the job of Tiresias, to be able to really get that puzzle, that riddle solved? But Oedipus bested him, and that's what Oedipus thinks in his sort of paranoid bent of mind. I did better than you. You're just a fraud. And later when Creon comes in, because Oedipus says, Creon put you up to this. Creon wants to have the kingship. Creon thinks he should be the king of Thebes. So Oedipus starts getting kind of paranoid that you two are out to get me. But there's a grain of truth in what he's saying. Could Tiresias be somewhat ambitious in this way? Could he want to take down the king? Could he feel resentment? Could there be a rivalry between him and Oedipus? A rivalry, like we both did the same, we were doing the same thing, but you did it better than me. We were after the same thing, the worship of the people for having been the liberator from the Sphinx, but you achieved it and I did not. That's what Oedipus thinks. And then Oedipus says the same thing later about Creon. You're out to get me. You would like to be the king. Creon makes a speech about how it would be so much better to not be the king, but to be close to the power is better than being the restless one, always in fear of betrayal and always having the mantle of responsibility. Much better to be me, close to power, wielding power, but not having all the authority and all the responsibility. That's his sort of apologia, his speech in self-defense against Oedipus's lashing out at him. So this play is really starting to get into a psychodynamic, right? The psychology of Oedipus is really sort of what's being revealed here. You can see why Sigmund Freud really loved this play, Sigmund Freud. Remember, before he was the old cigar chewing guy, he was a young, handsome buck in Vienna, Austria. That's Sigmund as a young man. And Sigmund Freud, whoa, let me get back to that one. Let's get back to this one. There's Sigmund Freud as he was when he was a mature, aging man with a cigar, trademark cigar in his hand, the spectacles. Here's the couch where the patient would lie down, and they would do a lot of free association. Freud would ask a question and just listen to the answers, and then ask another question, listen to the answers. And this is where psychoanalysis, it's the way that it was done back in the day. Of course, things have changed since then, but there's kind of a psychoanalytic bent to this whole play because Oedipus is slowly being chipped away at. Tiresias chips away at him. And the language just goes to start showing that, just this slow reveal of Oedipus. Like Tiresias, he thinks he knows who Oedipus really is, and what Oedipus has really done, and he's just chipping away at him a little bit. He says in lines 482, he says, you mock my blindness? Let me tell you this. You with your precious eyes, you're blind to the corruption of your life, to the house you live in, those you live with. Who are your parents? Now that is baiting, isn't it? Do you know? All unknowing, you are the scourge of your own flesh and blood, the dead below the earth and the living here above. The double lash of your mother and your father's curse will whip you from this land one day. Oedipus doesn't know what he's talking about here, right? He just feels like he's being attacked, but it's doing the job of undermining Oedipus's self-confidence. Tiresias goes on, soon, soon you'll scream aloud. What haven won't reverberate? What rock of Cithaeron won't scream back and echo? Cithaeron, that's the mountain where Oedipus was exposed as a young boy by his father and mother, Laius and Jocasta, according to the story. That day you learned the truth about your marriage, the wedding march that sang you into your halls, the lusty voyage home to the fatal harbor. He's comparing Oedipus to a ship's captain, which is a very common Greek metaphor for the leader of a city-state, is a captain of a ship, and the ship is the people, the ship is the state. Oedipus is the captain, but he sailed his boat into a fatal harbor. He goes on, and Oedipus says, get out of here. Enough, Oedipus says, such filth from him insufferable. What? Still alive? Get out, faster, back where you came from, vanish. Now, vanishing becomes another big word in this play because you think about who has vanished in this play. What was the first vanishing? The first vanishing was the parents from Oedipus. The first vanishing was Laius. Laius vanished from Oedipus's life. Oedipus was left on the hillside. He was exposed as a child. Can you imagine the trauma of being abandoned to die, of the parents attempting to kill you or killing you in a way that they thought was somehow socially acceptable? And they put the pins through his ankles, which gave him the swollen foot name. They put the pins through his ankles to stop his ghost from coming to haunt them. They were very knowledgeable of their crime. The very first crime was when they vanished. The idea of vanishing goes on. You turn to lines 540. The chorus, the city elders are saying, "Look, the word of God has just come blazing, flashing off Parnassus' snowy heights. That man who left no trace," they're talking about the murderer of Laius. "That man who left no trace, after him, hunt him down with all our strength. Now under bristling timber, up through rocks and caves he stalks like the wild." Vanishing. It goes on, the chorus goes on, and they say, "I know of nothing, no, not in the past and not now, no charge to bring against our king." They don't want to suspect Oedipus is guilty. "To attack his fame that rings throughout Thebes, not without proof." This is what the city people are saying. "Not for the ghost of Laius, not to avenge a murder, gone without a trace." Gone without a trace. Tiresias goes off stage, and in comes Creon. And then the heat gets turned up on Oedipus again. And what you're going to see is start happening is Oedipus is going to go back into his own past. He's going to try to remember. He's going to try to find the traces, the vanished past of his own life, through a process that's a little bit like psychoanalysis, but not very friendly. It's not like lying down on the couch in Sigmund Freud's office. This is for all the stakes. This is for all the marbles, for his whole life, for his whole identity, who he thinks he is, which is a little bit like psychoanalysis too. He thinks that he walks around on 2 feet, and with his pacing, he can measure life and he can understand who he is, right? He thinks he sees, but he's actually blind because he doesn't know his own darkness. Creon comes in. "I hear you've been saying things about me." Oedipus says, "If you think you can abuse a kinsman and escape the penalty, you're insane." He's enraged at Creon. "Fair enough," says Creon. "I grant you, but this injury you say I've done you, what is it?" Oedipus says, "Did you induce me, yes or no, to send for that sanctimonious prophet, Tiresias?" "I did. And I do the same again," says Creon. "It was good counsel." Oedipus says, "All right then, tell me, how long is it now since Laius?" Now suddenly Oedipus is into this Laius thing. His mind is going back to Laius. Suddenly he's going back to recapture this trace of the vanished man. "How long is it now since Laius ... The text says. He gets cut off. Creon says, "Laius? What did he do?" Oedipus says, "Vanished. Swept from sight." What did he do? Vanished. Just stop right there. Isn't that the crime against Oedipus? Isn't Oedipus, in a sense, the victim in his childhood? Isn't a lot of psychoanalysis going to childhood and figuring out what has happened to you? The back and forth between Creon and Oedipus just gets worse and worse. And Creon says, "You're insane, you're wrathful, you're accusing me of trying to unseat you and usurp your power." And Oedipus says, "Yeah, you and Tiresias, you're working together, and I want you dead." And Jocasta, Oedipus's wife, hears this mashup going on, comes running on the stage and says, "Hold it, take it easy, settle down. You, Creon, you go inside. Oedipus, you take it easy." "How did the quarrel start?" she says, around 775. He says, "I murdered Laius." Oedipus says, "I'm guilty." "How does he know? Some secret knowledge or simple hearsay?" "Oh, he sent his prophet in to do his dirty work. You know Creon. Creon keeps his own lips clean." Jocasta says, "A prophet? Well, then free yourself of every charge. Listen to me and learn some peace of mind. No skill in the world, nothing human can penetrate the future. Here is proof, quick and to the point. Jocasta doesn't necessarily believe in prophets. Why? Her personal experience. She shares it with Oedipus. An oracle came to Laius one fine day, back when she was married to Laius 20 years ago. I won't say from Apollo himself, but his underlings, his priests, and it declared that doom would strike him down at the hands of his son, our son, to be born of our own flesh and blood. But Laius, so the report goes at least, was killed by strangers, plural. Thieves, at a place where 3 roads meet. My son, he wasn't 3 days old, and the boy's father fastened his ankles, had a henchman fling him away on a barren, trackless mountain. See, we got rid of our kid. There was a bad prophecy about our kid, but we got rid of him. And Laius died at the hands of thieves years later. You see, Apollo brought neither thing to pass. So Jocasta doesn't believe in these prophecies from the gods. Apollo brought neither thing to pass. My baby no more murdered his father than Laius suffered his wildest fear, death at his own son's hands. That's how the seers, prophets, and all their revelations mapped out the future. Brush them from your mind. Whatever the god needs and seeks, he'll bring light to himself with ease. So don't go for these prophets because they're not the real deal. Oedipus is now oddly and moved in a misgiving sort of way, a fearful way. There's something happening to him. Again, his confidence is being eroded by these statements. He says, strange, hearing you just now, my mind wandered, my thoughts racing back and forth. What do you mean? Why so anxious, startled? I thought I heard you say that Laius was cut down at a place where 3 roads meet. And that was the story. It hasn't died out yet. Oedipus, where did this thing happen? Be precise. Jocasta, a place called Phocis, where 2 branching roads, one from Dahlia, one from Delphi, come together, a crossroads. Oedipus, when? How long ago? Jocasta, the heralds no sooner reported Laius dead than you appeared, and they hailed you king of Thebes. Ooh. And then Oedipus asks for some details of the man's physical features. And again, he's reeling, he's back on his heels. The material is starting to work on him. His past is coming to light. The traces are starting to appear. Oedipus keeps asking questions about the day of Laius's murder. He wants details. Did he go with a light or heavy escort? Several men at arms, like a lord, a king? Jocasta, there were 5 in the party, a herald among them, and a single wagon carrying Laius. Oedipus, aye, now I can see it all, clear as day. Who told you all this at the time, Jocasta? Jocasta says, a servant who reached home, the lone survivor. This is another detail that's a discrepancy in the accounts of Laius's killing. Oedipus killed somebody at a crossroads, but he killed them all. According to this tale, there was a survivor. Another version says that there were many. There was a plurality of killers, not just one. So Oedipus is confused, but he's disturbed. So, a servant, huh? Could he still be in the palace even now? Can we bring him back quickly? Easily. Why do you want him so? Jocasta asks. I am afraid, Jocasta. I have said too much already. That man, I've got to see him. Oh, then he'll come. But even I have a right, I'd like to think, to know what's torturing you, my lord. So Oedipus is calling for this survivor of the murder of Laius to come so that he can get testimony and exonerate himself, because he's starting to wonder if he, in fact, was the killer. We get into this heated moment, heating up of the darkness inside Oedipus, and he says to Jocasta, you said thieves, emphasis on thieves, the plural. He told you a whole band of them murdered Laius. So if he still holds to the same number, I cannot be the killer. 1 can't equal many. So this is the mathematics, right? This is the number. This is the measuring. What do feet do? They measure, they pace, they measure the distance between things, right? So number is important, and it's part of the conscious mind and what makes us feel secure. 1 can't equal many. But if he refers to 1 man, 1 alone, clearly the scales come down on me. I am guilty. Jocasta says, impossible. Trust me, I told you precisely what he said, and he can't retract it now. So you can't. Apollo was explicit. My son was doomed to kill my husband. My son, poor defenseless thing. He never had a chance to kill his father. They destroyed him first. So much for prophecy, says Jocasta. And this is constantly pointed out by readers of the play. Jocasta's irreverence, her disrespect for prophets, for the oracle, for the traditional means of worship, for the traditional respect for traditional forms of ritual and religion. It's neither here nor there. From this day on, I wouldn't look left or right. And keep in mind that this whole murder mystery involves society. It's a social problem, right? That requires a cleansing of the land. And somehow the person who's guilty, if we find that person, punish that person through banishment or death, that will purify the sin that's been committed. So keep in mind that there's a social and a religious background to this whole thing, and prophecies are part of it. And the traditional religion is sort of at stake here. And the chorus, which is, like I've said, the Chamber of Commerce, the elders of the city, they represent the ordinary opinion of average, everyday people. They say on line 985, never again will I go reverent to Delphi. So the undermining of the traditional faith, the inviolate heart of earth, or Apollo's ancient oracle at Abe, or Olympia of the fires, unless these prophecies all come true, for all mankind to point toward in wonder. King of kings, if you deserve your titles, Zeus, remember, never forget, you and your deathless everlasting reign. They are dying, the old oracle sent to Laius. Now our masters strike them off the rolls. Nowhere Apollo's golden glory now. The gods go down. So there's this incredible threat to everything. It's happening to Oedipus on a very personal, intrapsychic level. It's happening to the city on a social and cultural level. Jocasta goes on saying things against the prophecies. She sort of yells out, you prophecies of the gods, where are you now? This is the man that Oedipus feared for years. He fled not to kill him, and now he's dead because, oh, I forgot to tell you just now, a messenger comes in from Corinth, where Oedipus was raised up and became a young man before he fled to Thebes so that he wouldn't rise up and kill the king of Corinth, his adoptive father, Polybus. A messenger comes from Corinth with the news for Oedipus. Look, your father's dead. King Polybus of Corinth is dead. And that's when Jocasta says, you prophecies of the gods, where are you now? This is the man, Polybus of Corinth. Oedipus feared for years. He fled him. He fled Corinth to come here, not to kill him. And now he's dead. Polybus died, but not at Oedipus's hand, quite by chance, a normal natural death, not murdered by his son. And so things seem to be looking better. And even Oedipus starts to feel confident. Why scan the birds, he says later on line 1055, that scream above our head. So birds were prophetic animals, right? They winged up me on to the murder of my father, did they? Ha, that was my doom? Well, look, he's dead and buried, hidden under the earth, and here I am in Thebes. I never put hand to sword. So we're starting to feel good, like, oh, relief. I thought I was the one. That's how he's been unbalanced. That's how much his confidence has been undermined. And Jocasta's echoes what he says. It's all chance. Chance rules our lives. Not a man on earth can see a day ahead, groping through the dark. No foresight, no prophets, no seers. Do you see how this is irreverent? Better to live at random, best we can. And as for this marriage with your mother, have no fear. Many a man before you in his dreams has shared his mother's bed. Take such things for shadows, nothing at all. Live, Oedipus, as if there's no tomorrow. Whew. That's a place to stop. Because here's the mother telling the son, right? If we believe that Oedipus is the son of Jocasta and Laius, and he's discovering his identity after all these years. The irony of her telling him, look, don't worry about it. Lots of men dream of lying with their mother. It's a natural thing. It's common. You're not the first. Well, we'll see what happens during the last session of our reading of Oedipus King. Thanks for being here. Hope you're all doing well.